50 years had passed since the galaxy learned the terrible truth. Earth was gone, burned to ash by its own sun, and humanity existed only as broken remnants scattered across distant worlds. At least that was what everyone believed, Captain. Minho wiped sweat from his forehead as he descended into the dark. Mining tunnels of Kepler 4-4b, the red planet's twin suns beat down mercilessly. But underground, the air was thick and stale. Around him, hundreds of humans moved like ghosts, their faces empty of hope. The Vorthok overseers watched from their elevated platforms, their crystalline bodies glowing with cold blue light. To them, humans were nothing more than tools that happened to breathe. They spoke about humans the way others might discuss broken machinery, useful for now, but easily replaced. At another beautiful day in paradise, Haijin muttered beside him, her voice bitter. She had been a naval engineer once, back when Earth still existed. Back when humans had dreams of exploring the stars as equals rather than slaves. Minho nodded but said nothing. He had learned long ago that hope was dangerous here. The Vorthok had sensors that could detect elevated heart rates, unusual brain activity, anything that suggested rebellion. Too many good people had disappeared into the deep mines for showing too much spirit. But late at night, when the overseers retired, to their climate-controlled quarters, Minho allowed himself to remember. He remembered Seoul's glittering skyline, the smell of street food, his mother's laughter. The hegemony claimed all of that was gone, vaporized when Earth's sun went supernova in what they called the Great Burning. The story never made sense to him. Stars didn't just explode without warning. Earth's scientists would have detected the signs decades in advance. But questioning the official story was forbidden, punishable by death or worse, transfer to the deep mines where humans went to die slowly that night. Minho sat in his small concrete cell, staring at a piece of salvaged electronics he had been working on for months. Jae-sung, a former communications specialist, had helped him build it from scraps stolen from the mining equipment. It was crude, barely functional, but it could intercept hegemony transmissions if they were lucky. Luck tonight? Dujan asked quietly. The medic sat on her own narrow bunk, her hands always busy, always healing someone. She was one of the few who still remembered what Earth's forests looked like. Minho adjusted the device carefully. Static filled the air, then fragments of alien voices speaking in the harsh tones of Vorthok military language. Most of it was routine supply reports, shift changes, complaints about the heat. Then he heard something that made his blood freeze. Project Lazarus status report. A voice crackled through the static. Containment holding at 97% efficiency. Another voice replied. No breach attempts detected. Excellent. The Council remains convinced of total sterilization. Continue monitoring coordinates 127.4 by 83.7. Minho's hands trembled as he quickly wrote down the numbers. Those coordinates, ... they seemed familiar. Too familiar after the transmission ended. He sat in stunned silence. Jae-sung looked over at the numbers, and his face went pale. Those coordinates, Jae-sung whispered. Minho, those are ... Sol system. Coordinates, Minho finished. Earth's solar system. The four of them sat in their small hiding place beneath the mining complex, staring at the numbers that changed everything. If the coordinates were real, if Project Lazarus was what it sounded like, then everything they had been told was a lie. What does it mean? Julian asked, her voice barely audible. Haijin was already checking her hidden technical manuals, cross-referencing stellar positions with the coordinates. Her hands shook as she worked. Means, she said slowly, that Earth might still be there. The words hung in the air like a prayer. For 50 years, they had mourned their lost world. They had accepted that they were refugees with no home to return to. Children born on the colony worlds had never seen Earth, knew it only through stories their parents told in hushed voices. But what if the stories were wrong? What if the Great Burning never happened? Minho felt something he had not experienced in decades. Hope. It burned in his chest like a small flame, dangerous and bright. We need to know for sure, he said finally. How? Jae-sung asked. We're prisoners here. The Vorthok watch everything. The supply ships, Haijin said suddenly.
Next week there's
a scheduled supply run to the outer sectors. If we could get aboard? That's suicide, Duyan protested. Even if we could steal a ship, we'd never make it past the patrol routes. Maybe, Minho agreed. But if there's even a chance that Earth still exists, that everything we've been told is a lie, don't we have to try? He looked at each of his friends, these people who had become his family in this place of exile and pain. They were all that remained of his old life, the only connection to a world that might not be as lost as everyone believed. They told us Earth was gone, he said. Quietly, they told us we were alone. But what if they lied? What if our home is still out there, waiting for us to come back? The decision was made in that moment, in the darkness beneath an alien world, by 4 humans who refused to accept that their story was over. The stolen hegemony supply ship drifted silently through space, toward the coordinates that had haunted Minho's dreams. 3 weeks had passed since their desperate escape from Kepler 44 to B. 3 weeks of hiding in the cargo hold, eating nothing but emergency rations, and praying their crude modifications to the ship's identity codes would hold. Jae-sung sat hunched over the navigation console, his fingers dancing across alien controls he had learned to read through pure necessity. We're almost there, he whispered, though there was no one else in the vast emptiness of space to hear them. Do-Yeon floated near the medical station, checking their meager supplies for the 100th time. Her hands moved automatically, but her eyes were fixed on the view screen ahead. Jin worked frantically at the sensor array, trying to boost their scanning range with parts cannibalized from the ship's less essential systems. Dropping out of hyperspace in 10 seconds, Jae-sung announced. Minho gripped the command chair as reality twisted around them. The familiar sensation of hyperspace travel faded, replaced by the cold clarity of normal space. He expected to see nothing. Empty void where Earth should be. Maybe some debris if they were unlucky. Instead, every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. What is that? Duyan gasped, pointing at the view screen. Where Earth's solar system should be, space itself seemed to be wrapped in light. A massive. The barrier of pure energy stretched across millions of kilometers, enclosing the entire system like a soap bubble made of stars. Through the shimmering wall, they could see planets moving in their ancient orbits. Possible, Haijin breathed, reading her instruments with shaking hands. The energy output is... I can't even measure it. It's like someone built a wall around the entire solar system. Jae-sung adjusted the view screen, zooming in on the 3rd planet from the sun. Minho's heart stopped. There, spinning slowly in the familiar dance he remembered from childhood, was Earth. Not a burned cinder. Not empty space. Earth, blue and white and unmistakably alive. But it was different. Even from this distance, they could see massive structures in orbit. Space elevators reached down from enormous stations. Ships moved between the planets like schools of metal fish. The Earth they remembered had been transformed into something far more advanced. How is this possible? Dujian whispered. The hegemony said the sun exploded. They showed us the recordings. Before anyone could answer, their communications array crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect Korean, clear and strong. Unknown. Vessel, this is Earth Defense Control. You're approaching restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately or you will be destroyed. The bridge fell completely silent. After 50 years of believing they were the last remnants of humanity, Earth was talking to them. Minho's throat felt dry as sand. His hands trembled as he reached for the communication controls. Earth Defense Control. This is Captain Minho, formerly of the Korean Stellar Navy. We thought you were dead. A long pause. Then the voice returned, warmer now, but still cautious. Captain Minho, please provide your service identification and last known assignment. Service number 7749, assigned to the exploration vessel, Sejong. Lost contact during the hegemony first contact incident 50 years ago. The words came automatically, pulled from memories he had thought were just painful dreams. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, Captain, you are cleared for escort through the barrier. Welcome home. The energy wall in front of them opened like a flower blooming. 3 sleek ships emerged from the opening, unlike anything Minho had ever seen. They moved like living things, their hulls seeming to flow and adapt as they approached. "Follow the escort vessels to Luna Station," the voice continued. "Medical teams are standing by." As they passed through the barrier, Minho felt something he had almost forgotten, the sensation of coming home. The sun looked the same, warm and yellow and life-giving. The planets were where they should be. But everything else had changed in ways he could barely comprehend. Luna Station had grown into a massive complex, its gleaming towers reaching out into space like the arms of a giant star. Ships of incredible design moved between the docking bays. Most shocking of all, Minho could see people through the station's transparent sections. Humans, walking freely, working, living. The docking process was smooth and automatic. As soon as their stolen ship was secured, the airlock opened, to reveal a man in his 60s wearing clothes that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "I'm Dr. Sung-min," the man said, his voice kind but tired. "I'm the director of xenotechnology research here. I've been waiting 50 years to have this conversation." Minho and his crew followed Dr. Sung-min through corridors that hummed with energy. The walls themselves seemed alive, responding to their presence with gentle pulses of light. "The first thing you need to understand," Dr. Sung-min said as they walked, "is that the hegemony didn't destroy Earth. They tried to. What they call the Great Burning was their first attempt at wiping us out completely." He led them to a viewing chamber overlooking Earth. The planet below was scarred but healing, its cities glowing with unfamiliar energy patterns. "We survived because of something we found," Dr. Sung-min continued. "Something buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Technology left behind by a species that faced the same enemy we did. Long before humans ever looked up at the stars, Minho stared at the Earth below, at the home he had thought was lost forever. "How long have you been hiding here?" 50 years, Dr. Sung-min replied. 50 years of learning, building, preparing. The barrier that concealed us was activated automatically when the hegemony attacked. We've spent all this time getting ready for the day we could drop it and show them what happens when you try to exterminate humanity." He turned to face Minho, directly, his eyes hard as steel. "That day is coming soon." Dr. Sung-min led them deeper into Luna Station, through corridors that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. The walls were no longer the cold metal Minho remembered from human ships. Instead, they flowed like living tissue, responding to their presence with gentle waves of blue light. "What you're seeing," Dr. Sung-min explained as they walked, "is the merger of human engineering with something far older. We call them the architects." They entered a vast chamber that took Minho's breath away. In the center stood a crystalline structure the size of a building, its surface covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The crystal hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. "The architects ruled the galaxy millions of years ago," Dr. Sung-min continued. "They were peaceful, advanced beyond anything we can imagine. But they faced the same enemy we do now." A younger man approached them, his right arm replaced by something that looked grown rather than built. The artificial limb moved with perfect grace, interfacing directly with the crystal structure through threads of light. "This is Jin Woo, our chief engineer," Dr. Sung-min said. "He was one of the first to successfully bond with architect technology." Ginwoo smiled, but his eyes held depths that spoke of experiences beyond normal human understanding. "The architects left these caches scattered across the galaxy," he explained, his artificial hand dancing over controls that appeared in the air around him. "Insurance policies against extinction. Earth sits on the largest cache ever discovered." Haijin stepped closer to the crystal, her engineer's mind fascinated despite her fear. "How does it work?" "It responds to consciousness," Ginwoo replied. "Not just intelligence, but the will to survive, to protect, to continue existing." When the hegemony attacked Earth 50 years ago, our collective determination to live activated systems that had been sleeping for millions of years. Through the chamber's transparent floor, they could see construction bays where ships unlike anything in the known galaxy were being assembled. The vessels seemed to grow rather than being built, their hulls incorporating both human design principles in flowing architect aesthetics. The barrier that hit us, Dr. Sungmin continued, was just the beginning. We've learned to work with architect technology, not just use it. Our ships can phase through solid matter. Our weapons can reach across space and time. Our defenses adapt to any threat. Duyan, who had been silent throughout the tour, finally spoke. How many people survived? 3 billion on Earth, Dr. Sungmin replied. Plus the colonies that escaped the initial attacks. We've been in contact with resistant cells across the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, alarms were screaming in the command center of the Hegemony flagship. Admiral Kextal of the Vorthok Enforcement Fleet studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. The energy signatures from Sol System matched no known technology in their databases. Impossible, Kextal hissed, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. Earth was confirmed destroyed. I personally supervised the stellar cascade that ignited their sun. His aide, a nervous Zephyrian with too many eyes, shuffled through data tablets. Admiral, the readings are consistent. Something is generating massive energy output in the Sol System. Kexthal's form darkened to deep purple, a sign of extreme stress among his species. If word spread that the Hegemony's greatest victory was fabricated, that humans had somehow survived their attempted genocide, the entire power structure of the galaxy would collapse. How many ships do we have available? He demanded. The Grand Fleet numbers 1,047 vessels, Admiral. Should I begin mobilization? Yes, Kextal replied, his voice cold as space itself. Whatever survived in that system dies today. No witnesses, no survivors, no evidence. The galaxy must believe that humanity is extinct. Back on Luna Station, Jinwoo suddenly straightened, his artificial arm glowing brighter. They're coming, he announced, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the crystal structure. Massive fleet, approximately 1,000 ships. They'll be here in 6 hours. Admiral Soyoung entered the chamber, her uniform seeming to shift and adapt to her movements like living armor. She was younger than Minho expected, but her eyes held the weight of command earned through decades of hidden warfare. Perfect timing, she said with a smile that held no warmth. We were getting tired of hiding. Dr. Sungmin gestured to a wall display that showed Earth's orbital defenses. Massive platforms moved into position, their weapons charging with energy that made space itself ripple. 50 years of preparation, he said. 50 years of watching our people suffer in slavery while we've built the tools for justice. Minho watched the preparations with growing amazement. This wasn't just a military force. It was humanity evolved, transformed by necessity and alien technology into something that could face the galaxy's greatest power as an equal.
Ow.
What about the colonies? He asked. The humans still enslaved. On worlds like Kepler 4-4 to be? Admiral Soyoung's smile became genuine for the first time. Every resistance cell has been equipped with architect-enhanced weapons. When the battle begins here, revolutions will start on 1,000 worlds simultaneously. She moved to the central crystal, placing her hand on its surface. Light flowed through the structure, carrying her words across impossible distances. All stations. This is Admiral Soyoung. The masquerade is over. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when you try to erase a species that refuses to die. Jinwoo's readings showed the approaching Hegemony fleet, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected to find refugees or primitive survivors. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had become something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The energy barrier around Earth flickered once, then vanished like a candle, being blown out. For the first time in 50 years, humanity's homeworld stood exposed to the void. But Earth was no longer the defenseless planet the Hegemony remembered. Admiral Soyoung stood on the bridge of the Guangbok, watching as her ship emerged from Earth's shadow. The vessel moved with predatory grace, its hull seeming to absorb light and bend space around itself. Behind her, 200 human ships took formation, each one a fusion of human ingenuity and architect technology that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. Admiral Kextal's Grand Fleet numbered Over 1,000 ships representing the combined military might of 6 different species. They had come expecting to crush whatever pathetic remnants had survived in the Sol system. Instead, they found themselves facing something that shouldn't exist. Human vessels. Kexel's voice boomed across all communication channels. You are in violation of galactic law. Surrender immediately and submit to judgment for your crimes against the established order. Sol Young smiled, her hand resting on controls that pulsed with architect energy. Our crimes? She replied, her voice carrying across space to every ship in both fleets. Our crime was surviving your genocide attempt. The Guangbok's main weapon. Fired before Kextal could respond. The beam didn't travel through space so much as reach through it, grabbing the massive hegemony flagship and crushing it like an empty can. The explosion lit up the darkness between worlds. For Earth, So Young's voice echoed through the fleet communications. For every human child who grew up believing they were orphans, for 50 years of lies, the battle that followed rewrote every rule of space warfare. Human ships phased through enemy fire as if it didn't exist, their hulls adapting and evolving in real time. When hegemony weapons did connect, the damage healed itself within seconds. Captain Unesio commanded the destroyer Hanbok, watching in amazement as her ship's architect-enhanced systems responded to her thoughts faster than she could speak them. Target their command ships, she ordered, and her weapons obeyed with precision that bordered on telepathy. The beam lanced out, not just destroying the enemy vessel, but somehow turning its own weapons against nearby ships. The hegemony formation began to collapse as their own technology betrayed them. On the other side of the battle, panic spread through the alien fleet. Commander Veltar, of the Nethan forces, watched his sensors with growing terror as human ships seemed to multiply before his eyes. Each vessel appeared to exist in several places at once, making targeting impossible. Retreat, he screamed into his communicator. All ships retreat. These aren't the humans we remember. But retreat was not an option So Young intended to offer. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves, cutting off escape routes and herding the enemy fleet into a deadly trap. Architect weapons reached across space to disable engines, leaving hegemony vessels floating helplessly as their crews realized the true scope of their mistake. Within 3 hours, half the Grand Fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled in panic, but not before human infiltration systems tagged every retreating ship with quantum beacons that would follow them across the galaxy. As the last enemy vessel disappeared into hyperspace, So Young opened communication channels to every human colony in known space. Her message was simple but carried the weight of 50 years of hidden preparation. People of Earth's scattered children, she began, her voice reaching mining worlds, agricultural planets, and factory stations across hundreds of systems. The hegemony told you Earth was dead. They lied. Your homeworld lives, and today we reclaim our place among the stars. Right. On Kepler 44 to be the same mining world where Minho had discovered the truth. Human workers looked up from their tools as hidden. Speakers activated throughout the complex. The Vorthok overseers, those same crystalline beings who had treated humans like disposable tools, suddenly found themselves facing workers who no longer looked broken. Hyjin, who had returned to lead. The Liberation stepped forward with a weapon that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Your shift is over, she told the nearest overseer. Permanently. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 1,000 worlds. Humans who had spent decades in servitude revealed hidden caches of architect-enhanced weapons. Mining equipment turned into military hardware. Agricultural machines became weapons of war. The scattered children of Earth rose up simultaneously, their coordination perfect after 50 years of secret preparation. Dr. Sungmin, monitoring the global revolution from Luna Station, watched the communication networks light up with reports of successful uprisings. Phase 1 complete, he announced to the gathered command staff. Every major hegemony stronghold is either neutralized or under siege. Minho, now wearing the uniform of Earth's reformed navy, stood beside his old friend. As they watched the galaxy transform in real time, what's Phase 2? he asked. So Young answered from the main screen, her ship now patrolling Earth's orbit as construction crews worked to rebuild the planet's defenses. Phase 2 is making sure this never happens again. The hegemony built their power on lies and genocide. It's time the galaxy learned to build something better. Through the viewing ports of Luna Station, Earth spun slowly in the eternal dance of day and night. The scars of the hegemony's first attack were still visible, great glassed valleys, where their weapons had struck. But surrounding those scars were new cities, gleaming with architects' technology and human determination. The galaxy had learned the hard way that claiming humanity as extinct had been their greatest mistake. Now they would learn what happened when the supposedly dead returned not as victims but as architects of justice. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The hegemony's massive government buildings on dozens of worlds stood empty. Their former occupants either fled or facing justice for 50 years of systematic oppression. Minho walked through the halls of what had once been the hegemony's central command on the planet Nexus Prime. Now, it served as the meeting place for the reformed Galactic Council. Representatives from over 100 species filled the Great Assembly Hall. Many of them former victims of hegemony rule, who were finally free to speak their truth. The Vorthok delegation sat in a section reserved for those facing war. Crimes tribunals. Former Admiral Kextal, stripped of all rank and authority, stared at the floor as evidence of his species' atrocities was presented. Beside him, other hegemony leaders who had participated in the attempted genocide of humanity waited for judgment. "We did not return for conquest," Minho addressed the assembly. His words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We returned because civilizations built on lies and murder cannot stand as the foundation for any peaceful future." The audience, species that had never been allowed to speak in the old hegemony councils, listened with amazement. The Kalani, whose homeworld had been strip-mined for resources, finally had a voice. The Threks, who had been forced into military service for the hegemony, could now choose their own path. But not all species embraced the new order willingly. The Korthax Empire, a militaristic society that had profited greatly from hegemony rule, chose defiance over acceptance. Their fleets launched attacks on human colonies, believing they could restore the old ways through force. They learned quickly how wrong they were, Admiral. Soyoung's response was swift and precise. Human fleets, now operating openly across the galaxy, surrounded Korthax worlds not with threats, but with demonstrations. Their ships phased through the strongest shields, disabled entire defense networks without firing a shot, and left the Korthax, military helpless to protect their own planets. "Submit to the new galactic laws," Soyoung broadcast to the Korthax leadership, "or watch your war machine become scrap metal. The choice is yours." The Korthax chose submission. On Earth, the planet had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The massive scars left by the hegemony's first attack had been turned into memorial gardens where Earth's children could remember the cost of vulnerability. Around these sites of memory, gleaming cities rose that blended human architecture with architect technology. Dr. Sungmin, now in his 70s but still sharp as a laser blade, gave guided tours to alien diplomats who came seeking peace treaties. He would always stop at the Great Memorial Wall, where the names of every human killed in the hegemony's genocide attempt were carved in living crystal. "We kept these scars," he would tell his visitors, "not because we wanted to remember hatred, but because we never want to forget what happens when the strong prey upon the weak without consequence." Some species, like the crystal-based Nethans, embraced the new order completely. They offered full reparations for their part in humanity's enslavement, and shared their advanced crystal-growing technology freely. Former Commander Veltar, who had fled the Battle of Sol in terror, now worked alongside human engineers to develop new peaceful applications for Architect. Technology others took longer to accept the changes. The gas-breathing Zephyrians, who had served as administrators in the hegemony's bureaucracy, struggled to adapt to a system where their decisions were subject to review by their former victims. Haijin commanded the liberated world of Kepler 44 to be, overseeing its transformation from a mining prison into a center for technological development. The same tunnels where humans had once labored as slaves now housed research laboratories where former prisoners worked, alongside reformed aliens to develop new ways of healing worlds damaged by hegemony exploitation. It's not about revenge, she explained to a gathering of interspecies engineers. It's about making sure this kind of systematic oppression can never happen again. The former Vorthok overseers who had treated humans like disposable tools now faced a justice system that emphasized rehabilitation over punishment. Those who showed genuine remorse and willingness to change were given opportunities to make amends. Those who remained defiant found themselves isolated and powerless, their authority gone forever. Jae-sung had become Earth's chief diplomatic communications officer, managing the complex web of negotiations required to rebuild galactic civilization. His office on Luna Station buzzed with activity as representatives from across the galaxy worked to establish new trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cultural exchange programs. The hardest part, he often told his staff, is convincing some species that we really don't want to become the new hegemony. They keep expecting us to start oppressing them in return. Dujan established medical centers on dozens of former slave worlds, training both human and alien doctors in techniques that combined Earth medicine with architect healing technology. Her hospitals became symbols of the new order, places where former enemies worked together to heal the wounds left by decades of systematic cruelty. In her final report as Fleet Admiral, Swayung wrote words that would be studied by historians for generations to come. They claimed Earth was gone to justify building their empire on our graves. They believed their own lies so completely that they forgot the most important truth about humanity. We are most dangerous when we are written off as extinct. The galaxy had learned that trying to erase a people only makes them stronger when they return. And humanity had returned not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as the builders of a justice system that would ensure no species would ever again face the choice between extinction and slavery. The hegemony's greatest lie had become the foundation of its own destruction, and humanity's supposed death had become the seed of the galaxy's rebirth into something better than what came before.